Hey, welcome. I am super excited about today's session. We're going to spend 30 minutes with Greg Parady. He's a top financial professional down in the villages. He's really specialized in educating people in the villages on financial issues. He works with all different levels of people. I mean, the villages is mostly a retirement community, but he works with their kids and their grandkids as well. So welcome, Greg. You have a very inspiring story. Tell us how it all began and how did you get here?
Well, thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here. My career started in retirement planning in 1996. I'm originally from Portland, Maine, and I just started working harder than everybody else in this industry right away, but certain things came naturally to me too, so I started working with retirees, and we started working in the Medicare industry, and we started doing a lot of long-term care planning, and at 22 years old, you don't really know what that stuff is typically. But I was just really good at it right away. It was something that was very natural to me, right? And I loved it, so I could throw myself right into it. And so for about 3.5 years, that's what I did. I worked just, harder than everybody else did, and outworked everybody, and found new ways to meet people and grow an insurance business, really, for lack of a better word, grew an insurance business in a town called Lewiston, Maine, which is just north of Portland. And that's where I built that's where I started. And when I was 25 years old, I wanted to start my own insurance agency. I wanted to be independent. And the company I worked for had different ideas on that. They wanted me to just sell their product, And as I ended up growing in the industry, I just realized that there was more out there than just this one particular product. So I moved to Florida temporarily. I had some friends in Florida, and they said, hey, why don't you come down to Florida? We got this great place. It's called The Villages. They got like 18,000 people that live here, It's like 175,000 today, by the way. So we're going back 25 years. Anyway, when I moved there, it was just a very natural place for me to be. Everybody was from the north. Everybody was retired. Everybody was worried about essentially the same issues that I grew up in, which I'll share in a minute. And it was like a match made in heaven. Like I fell in love with the villages, and I fell in love with Florida, frankly. Coming from Maine, it's easy to fall in love with Florida, right? Like, it's just sunny every day. Everybody I talked to was worried about money. Everybody I talked to was worried about their health. Everybody I talked to was uncertain about the future and anxious. And, you got to remember, this is back in like 2000, 2001, 2002, some of the worst years historically in the stock market. And so they were worried about their money. They were worried about their financial future. And I just happened to come along into this industry at a time when one particular product was designed to really fix a lot of that anxiety, and right place, right time. And then I think I had the right attitude and drive at that particular point in my life to be successful.
And you've now built it up. You have a staff of how many people? I mean, it's not just you anymore. You've got an entire staff.
Yeah, so the staff number has got to be close to 30 people, but we have, over time we grew. We were we did annuities and income planning and life insurance for a long time, and then I always knew that you needed more than just annuities, but annuities were a big part of retirement income, as you know. And then, so in 2009, 2010, we started a tax planning firm, and quickly grew that into the largest tax planning firm in that community, which, by the way, is the largest retirement community in the world. So it's 3 zip codes, it's its own city. And so we built a tax planning firm and a tax preparation firm. A couple years later, 2012, we started a registered investment advisory firm. And so we had our fiduciary platform, fee-based asset management that was done by, obviously people that are licensed in that field. We had CPAs doing tax planning or licensed in that field. And then my role was to quarterback the planning for income. And we always started with income. We said, listen, retirement's about income. You saved your whole life for 40 years. You didn't do that so that when you get to retirement, you can save for the next 20 years. When are we going to start spending this money? And so our company has become a meaningful size, and we now have quite a few advisors, and we have quite a few back office support. We have 3 separate companies that work together.
And you mainly work with retirees, but I know a lot of those retirees want their children and grandchildren to work with you as well. And since this show is kind of helping young people come up with ideas on how to become wealthy, kind of share what you're thinking.
There's like 3 areas, right? There's like that very early accumulation phase of life, 25 to 45, and then there's 45 to what I would call 45 to 60, where, up until like this year, up until like 2023, annuities were sort of not products that you'd look at, but with interest rates where they have just exploded, I think people 45 and older should be looking at protecting a source of income, because I've never seen rates this high in my 26 years in the industry since 1996. I'm sure you haven't seen rates this high like this. And we've never seen a market that's so volatile. So I think right now you would look at, if you're in that 45 plus market, and I'll talk about 25 plus in a second, but 45, 50 for sure. How can we preserve a portion of our retirement, a portion of our retirement assets, to secure future income at rates that are contractually guaranteed at the highest they've been since the 80s? I talk to people about the 80s all the time. I go, remember in the 80s when you were paying interest? Now you can get the interest, right? So let's lock those rates in while you can.
And what I hear some people saying, oh, you should buy bonds because you can lock in these rates for 2 years or 5 years. You get in the right annuity, you can lock it in for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so I think there's a trap that a lot of people have to be careful of right now. I talk to my peers about this, and that is buying these short-term fixed interest rates. Because short-term fixed interest rates are just that, they're short-term, right? And so if you're retired and you buy a 5-year CD or a 5-year bond, and I'm not investment licensed, so I've got investment advisors that do that. But if you buy something short-term, when you have to make a decision on that again, you're gonna be 5 years older. It gets harder and harder to make big decisions. And what are the chances that we'll have the highest interest rates we've ever had 5 years from now? But what you can buy right now is the highest income distributions I've ever seen.
Right.
And I've got enough gray now. I'm 50 years old this year. I finally say I've been at this long enough where I can say I've never seen anything like it. I'm looking at them for myself. It's routine to see payouts in the 7 to 10% range, depending on your age and situation in retirement. And the longer you hold those products, the higher the payout. So if you're 45 or 50 right now, you could be buying something that really is a game changer for retirement. Period.
Yeah, and
with no risk.
I own 12 annuities, so I'm on the board. But what I've found so fascinating is lately you've got companies like BlackRock. BlackRock doesn't sell any annuities. They got more money in the stock market than anybody else. They come out very pro annuity. Ernst & Young just did an entire white paper looking for the optimal portfolio, and they said every retirement portfolio should have some cash value life insurance, an annuity, and then investments. And so many of the things that we've been saying for years, now the mainstream is finding out that everything we said was true. Look, let's start out with some basics. Oh, I want you to talk about those 25 to 45 because we're going to cover that. What's some of your advice for those 25 to 45?
For younger people, 25 to 45, or when you get your first job. I say when you get your first job, but for me, I've been working since I was 12 years old, and so you get a job, you work, you save up money. That's how you bought stuff. Like you wanted Air Jordans, you went to work, you saved up enough money, and you blew it on Air Jordans. But people today don't always have that same mindset, and so I think for me, I made a decision very young, and this is how I look at it. I make a decision, I'm going to do something, and then I write it down, figure out how I'm going to do it, and then I go do it. And for me, that was always working. And I think the thing that, secrets that I've seen very successful retirees do, and I've gotten the opportunity, the fortune to look at it from the retiree's point of view. Everybody that I talk to that's retired that has the most money, they did it 2 weeks at a time. 2 weeks at a time. All they did was deduct or save a little bit 2 weeks at a time. Every single thing they did 2 weeks at a time. And if they have a little extra money, then it was a windfall that was unexpected, and that's the money they get stressed out about. Mm-hmm. But when they do it 2 weeks at a time, saving money 2 weeks at a time, and I don't care what it is, real estate investments, stock, bond portfolio, life insurance, annuities, savings accounts, just having money in the bank makes you feel confident. Save your money. Those are the happiest people I know. The happiest people I know are the ones that drive cars that are 10, 12, 14 years old. Now that would make me insane today. Okay, personally. But the happiest people I see in retirement, they just don't care about stuff. What they care about is financial security. And so for them, they started saving very, very early, and I would suggest anybody that's very young, make a decision on what you want to accomplish. Then do it and write it down. And then start saving a little bit. Start putting some money away, because you might want to invest in something, even if it goes into a bank account, which by the way, they're paying you interest now. Right. So even if you put it in a bank account and an opportunity can come along, you can invest in that. But do it consistently. It's like anything I've ever been good at in my life, or not so good at. You do it consistently, It becomes a habit.
Right.
And then habits become, they become routine. And that's how you create wealth, because the quicker you start, the more time you have for that money to grow. And I know you talk about that a lot, but it's a reality.
Yeah, people think it's painful to save it. It shouldn't be. It should be fun. And one little tip is just tape up a picture. When I was an insurance agent and I was trying to get these conferences, I'd put the picture of where the conference was going to be, just so every day I would see that. But if people are saving for something, save for that retirement trip or that cruise or if you can see it, then you can believe it. And when you believe it, then you can achieve it.
So I can totally relate to that, Tom, because I'm a huge believer in visualizing, manifesting, writing it down, making a decision. We've got vision boards in our house. We teach our kids to do this very, very young. What do you want? What do you have to do to get it? Okay, what's it look like? Put it on a board, and we put it right in the mirror. You look at it every day. And I think that's a huge part of being really successful. You want to be successful, there's easy ways to do it. You want to be exceptional, then you got to do those extra things like you just said.
But I liked how you said write it down, because that's really having a plan.
You have to write it
and
down.
Spending less than you earn, and saving, paying yourself first. These are just the simple basics that people can use to build wealth.
And if I could add one thing to that, Tom, the programs are created to help people do that.
Right.
Like they switched it around. They said, all right, we're not going to pay you pensions when you retire anymore, but if you put money away, we'll match some of it. Every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So take advantage of this right now. I'm not saying it's the only thing you should do, but do something.
Right.
You have to do something, and it starts by doing something.
And you're big into taxes too. And I've talked a lot about the IRA and 401k versus the Roth IRA and the Roth 401k. So kind of share some of your ideas around that.
Yeah. So I just can't imagine a scenario in the rest of my life where taxes keep going down. Now, I have also been saying that for 10 years, and taxes have been going down for 10 years, so I'm almost ready to throw in the towel on predicting the future on taxes. Taxes, it's hard to imagine they keep going down though, Tom.
Right.
Look, something's got to give. Most of the money that's saved in America is saved inside of tax-deferred accounts. Nobody's really buying the Roths like they should be, although it's starting to pick up a little. It's not like it should be.
Right.
Nobody's converting the way they should be, and what I mean by that is very astute people look at it and they'll convert little bits. But at the end of the day, if you have an IRA or a 401k right now, and you're no longer employed in your 401k, if you have an IRA, you can convert it to a Roth.
Right.
And here's the difference between the two. I always give this simple example. Here's the difference between an IRA and a Roth IRA, okay? Tax deferred versus tax free. I said, forget about money. I tell every single event I've ever done at our learning lounge, our learning center, I always say, listen, forget about money. We're going to forget about investing in mutual funds with our seed money. We're not going to invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or real estate. We're going to take seed money. We're going to actually buy seeds. We're going to plant the seeds. We're going to grow crops. Okay, and there's basically two kinds of crops. There's probably different spin-offs in the middle, but there's basically two different types of crops. The one crop, you buy these red seeds, tax-deferred seeds, and every time you buy those seeds, you get a tax break. And that's really good, because if you can save the money now, it'll grow tax deferred as well. So you get a tax break, and as the seeds take root and they grow tax deferred. And that's been told to us as being a really good thing forever and ever, right? Because when you get to retirement, as you know, we'll all be in a much lower tax bracket. And that's just the story. Right. Well, that's the story. Anyway, when you get to retirement, So most people did that. It's called the IRA, and these seeds came out in like 1974-ish. And then in 1980, we came out with these new red seeds. Every 2 weeks, we'll take them out of your paycheck. You get a tax deduction. Every 2 weeks, the company would match some of it. They get a tax deduction. They all go into the red trees, and they all take root, and they'll grow tax deferred. And so all of that money, when you think about it, these red crops, that's your tax deferred money. Okay, it's your 401k, it's your IRA, it's your 457, it's your 453. 403B, and it's your TSP or thrift savings plan. I'm sure I'm missing a couple others. Anything that you got a deduction on. Tax deferred means you are willing to get a deduction on the seed, and you're willing to pay taxes on the crop.
Yeah. On the
at
harvest,
some future date, at whatever the rate is.
Which you don't know.
Which you don't know.
Right.
You know what it is today.
Right.
It's the lowest it's ever been.
Right.
Like in 50, 60, 70, 80 years even. Maybe 80 years right now.
Right.
And we just got a break. We just found out the other day we're getting another break in 2024. Taxes are going down again. Makes no sense to me. So you can have this big crop of money that you've never paid taxes on. Never paid taxes on it. And you got to take the money out. It's not like you can keep it in there forever. You got to start taking it out at 73 now, I guess is the age. It changes every year now. You got to start taking that money out at 73. It's called a required minimum distribution. Guess what? It comes out as ordinary income. That's not like other assets or other taxes. So that gets added to your other income. And that means you can start paying stealth taxes on top of it. And it goes on and on and on. The point of it, if it's in the red, you got no idea what you have to pay on it. Right. And it's going to be the highest tax, most likely, of any assets that you own. Now, the Roth IRA, conversely, works like this. And it's very simple. You pay taxes on the seeds, you get the crop for free. You get the income for free. If you don't take it, it grows tax-free. If you do take it, it's not reported as a taxable thing that creates your Medicare to go up. It passes on to children tax-free. They can keep it inside of the IRA for multiple years after you pass it on to them tax-free. And whereas the red trees can create a lot of problems. So we look at tax-free money and taxable money. Red, if you're in the red, that's generally pretty bad, right? And if your gut money's made out, money's green, right? So if it's tax-free is always better. And so what we found, and the reason we created our tax firm was, we found that most people have a tax preparer or a solution for tax preparation and almost no strategy whatsoever for how to mitigate future taxes. So we created a tax team. I couldn't even find one for myself. So I said, the heck with it. We'll go buy our own, hire our own CPAs. We've got full-time CPAs, full-time certified financial planners. They work with our investment advisors. They work with our insurance agents. And we all make sure that everybody gets a tax-efficient investment strategy and retirement income strategy using annuities and life insurance. And by the way, one of the best tax benefits you'll ever get, and I know you'll talk about this later, is going to be cash value life insurance, permanent life insurance. That's like a super Roth. I would say a Roth IRA is really great for income. Cash value life insurance is really great for creating massive amounts of wealth in a very short period of time.
So really, to summarize, the Roth IRA, you pay tax on the seed, and the harvest is tax-free. With the regular IRA, you don't pay tax on the seed, but you got to pay tax on the entire harvest.
On the whole crop. Yeah. And it's so hard to pay taxes on those seeds, because you know why CPAs, when you go do your taxes, not all, but they're like, hey, you need to max out your IRA contribution. You can save $800. You can save $800. You can max out and people are like saving $800. They're going to pay taxes on
hundreds of thousands of dollars,
or more. We've got the lowest estate tax we've ever had, ever. It affects almost nobody.
And the stealth taxes you're talking about, when your income goes up, then you have to pay tax on more of your Social Security. Your Medicare premium is going to be different because the IRMA rules and all of that. And so those are the stealth taxes that people don't see. What kind of product?
You can't call them taxes. You're not allowed to call them taxes.
Right. They're additional.
They're surcharges.
Premiums.
Yes,
yeah.
Sir. Yes.
So what kind of product mix would you recommend for somebody in their 20s, 30s when they're trying to build wealth? You really said you don't really care what product, and I don't think you really do, but there's probably kind of a little formula for where they should lean more towards something else.
Yeah, so full disclosure, most of my clients are not that age, but I was that age. I think it depends on your family dynamics. If you have a young family, you better insure them. You better have life insurance to protect your family, okay? If you have a mortgage, you gotta have insurance. You gotta have some type of insurance for that as well. So I think I'm not an all or nothing person. Like, I would never put all of my money in Coca-Cola stock or all of my money in Amazon stock or any one stock. I would not put it all in one annuity or any one life insurance or one piece of real estate. So I think it starts by having some sort of a diversified plan that meets a risk tolerance. And it should be a combination of stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, but you got to have savings, you have emergency money, and you have to have you have got to insure your family. You have to have life insurance if you have a young family. If you're single, a little bit different, but the tax advantages of starting, on life insurance earlier, and the cost of it is really, really hard to beat right now.
And I use life insurance for numerous things. Number one, to leave a legacy to my kids and grandkids, but also I've been pouring more of my personal wealth into cash value life insurance as a bond substitute to get additional tax-free income. Now, I recently had David McKnight on, and he's a big believer in cash value life insurance. He wrote the book, The Power of Zero. I know, I'm a big believer in cash value life insurance. I know you are. So share some of the reasons why.
Yeah. Well, here's what I like. like about it. I can put it, I've designed my life insurance. They can be designed a lot of different ways. The ones that I've designed for myself and my family are designs where you can put money in. And I've designed it to where you can put almost unlimited amounts in, and then you can borrow the money back out from yourself. You can borrow it from yourself tax-free, and you can put the money back in. And so people call it like your personal bank on you or your personal banking system. I've never been comfortable using those types of words, but here's how I use it. When I need large sums of money, I would rather borrow it at 5%. When the insurance company is crediting me at least 5%.
Right.
So it's 0% last time I checked. 5 minus 5 still equals 0. So I like borrowing money at 0% and then paying it back. And so I love the tax advantages and the flexibility and the not being restricted, because for many years it was the only tax-free money I could get. There was no such thing as a Roth IRA for higher income earners. You couldn't get it.
Right.
You couldn't convert to it.
Right.
You couldn't contribute to it. You couldn't get it. So for me, I use life insurance for that. And then, of course, I'm a huge believer in it for wealth transfer. I don't think you should really die with a whole bunch of money. I take that from you too. I think, listen, you get one shot at this, and nobody's like, nobody says, hey, I want to work my whole life and then save a whole bunch of money so that when I get to retirement, I can die with it and leave it to someone, right? Like nobody says that. Like nobody sets out for that. And so I think with some smart planning, you should have some life insurance, you should have some annuities, you should have some investments, you should have some real estate, you should have a rainy day fund, and then depending on your risk profile, you would design more or less in one area or the other.
I've been in New York now for a few days. I was in Manhattan at the Future of Digital Assets conference, and it was really a cryptocurrency conference, and we were doing some other things there. But a few years ago, I even advocated that I supported 1% of a portfolio into crypto. And people thought I was crazy because I'm this safe money guy and everything. But I watched a guy on CNBC one time who said, look, we're advising our multimillionaires and billionaires to put 1% of their portfolio into crypto, because if it goes to zero, it's not going to hurt them. Sure. If it goes to $1 million of Bitcoin, they're going to be happy they did it. And that resonated with me. So I just see too many young people putting too much money in those what I call speculative type investments.
Yes, and I think because it is new, it's harder and harder to get good advice on how to do it as well, right? So you have to spend a lot of time investing in your own education and your own background and your own research so you can feel comfortable in knowing what you're investing in. And unfortunately on crypto, if you ask somebody what it is, almost nobody can tell you what it actually is, right? And so I think you have to be committed to it. I don't want to lose even 1% on purpose. So I want to be committed to understanding it. I think my clients should be committed to understanding it. And if I can't teach it to them, then they shouldn't buy it. Now, that being said, the technology that you hear about and learn about is phenomenal. And so it's hard to ignore it. It's like saying, well, you should never think about AI.
Right.
That would be crazy.
Right.
Right. Meanwhile, AI, is doing everything for us.
So let's dig a little deeper. I mean, as you know, our country's $33 trillion in debt. That debt is climbing at $5 billion every single morning. There's almost $200 trillion of unfunded obligation for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I meant 33 trillion. I think I said billion. $33 trillion. So we know taxes are going to have to go up. It's not even a Republican or Democrat issue. So
it's a math problem.
How high do you see rates possibly going, and share the mitigating things that you do to help mitigate that?
Well, so again, I don't have a crystal ball on what's happening with taxes. I just know that in order to control our national debt, which is nearly doubled in 6 years, or maybe not even that long. It's hard. You can't keep track of it when it's going at $5 billion a day, because nobody knows what $5 billion is. Yeah. Like 8 people in the world know what $5 billion is. So it's hard to get your head wrapped around these fantasy numbers, but $33 trillion is real money. And the only way that you're going to curb that is to do two things. You got to do two things, and they're only good at one thing, and that's you got to cut taxes or raise taxes and cut spending. You have to raise taxes and cut spending. And both of those are unpopular every 4 years. They're really unpopular every 4 years. The other thing they could do, and I think they got to raise. I say they got to raise or they could become responsible with how they spend it. Okay, so we could say they have to be more responsible with how they spend money. I don't think anybody's super confident that and how they spend it. So, I think things that people are underestimating right now is the estate tax limit is very, very high. I think that's unpredictable, unreasonable, and certainly not something that you should predict will stay at $24-25 million. Secondly, I don't think you have to look very far to see what taxes could look like in 10 or 15 years. Look at Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, we are getting older as a country. Those are older countries. Look at the older demographic countries and how they're paying for things. Europe is a perfect example. If in America right now, a retiree with $100,000 of income and some combination of Social Security and pension and IRAs is going to pay somewhere around $7,000 in taxes on $100,000. Go to Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, in Europe, forget about all the other taxes. It would be $25,000 to $35,000 in tax for the same $100,000 of income. We are so undertaxed right now relative to where we have been historically. I shouldn't say undertaxed. That will upset people, but our taxes are so low, Tom. People don't understand how low they are, and it's because they don't understand what they're paying. I do seminars every week. I go, how much? I'll do this example. I'll show 100,000 married couple. I'll go, how much do you think the tax is on 100,000? Like dollar amount. I'll ask them, how much do you think it is? 25,000, 32,000, 18,000. People are so far off. It's like $7,000 on a mix of Social Security, pension, and IRAs if your total annual income is around 100,000. And that's no state income tax added to that. People get confused by the brackets and they get paralyzed by the brackets, and they're confusing, right? They are 22%. I don't want to go in the 24%. I don't want to go in the 12%. I'm already in the 12%. I don't want to be in that. And I think because of that confusion and the unwillingness to pay a little bit right now, I think people are putting themselves in a bad spot. They're going to be paying a lot more in the future.
But isn't this also why people need to work with a financial professional? How can an average person do this by themselves? You know, you got a lot of do-it-yourselfers. I just don't think it's possible with all the different taxes that are out there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you have to have a professional, a team. I think you need a team, and then it's even more challenging than that because a lot of financial advisors are not allowed to give tax advice. Right? Like they're just not, it says it on their statements, we can't give tax advice. And so one of the reasons we are independent and have remained independent is so that we can go and we can start a tax planning firm, fully disclose that it's separate from our other services, and we can offer tax planning. Right. And right next door they can talk to an investment advisor, and right next door they can talk to an insurance agent. Because if you're not doing tax planning, you don't have a retirement plan. I do not think you have a retirement plan if you're not doing tax planning right now.
Right. Now, there are other risks other than taxes. So let's talk about, we always talk about the risk to retirees, but what about risks for pre-retirees? There's some risks out there. You know, they can die, they become disabled. There's risks.
Yeah, so pre-retirees, we're talking about like 10 years from retirement, 12 years from retirement, that type of thing. I think the risk there is becoming complacent, especially right now, because people that are 10, 12 years from retirement right now have spent half of their adult lives in a 0% interest rate environment where the only place to put money was in the stock market. And listen, we've just come off the worst 3 years in the history of the bond market. Stock market doesn't go up every year.
Right.
People think it does. Last year, it gave back, 1 year? And people are jumping up and down, you know? Right. But the reality is we have not had a real recession in 12, 13, 14 years, and usually have one every 7 or 8 years. And so I think the risk that pre-retirees face right now is expecting things to just continue. You got to be in the market, and it always just hang in there. It always comes back. Well, it doesn't always come back. The NASDAQ didn't come back. The NASDAQ changed out a bunch of companies, then it came back. But in 2000, it got cut by 50%. The S&P 500 went down 3 years in a row, 2000, 2001, 2002. And then in 2008, everybody remembers because it hit them where it hurt the most. It hit you at home, so you could see it every day when you got home. You knew how bad it was because you were driving home to a house that was underwater. We haven't had that. Even through COVID, we didn't have it. We haven't even paid really for COVID yet, in my opinion.
Well, and then the Japanese stock market has been down for over 30 years, and people just underestimate. And remember, Japan is an older country, and we're talking about older country. The European stock market has been down for 20 years, and so people don't realize that as economies age, markets can go down and stay down for longer. So, you know, one of the key advantages that young people have is time.
That's right.
And so talk about how time can help a young person with building wealth.
I compare it to climbing like the retirement mountain, right? Like if you're starting very young and you're going to start saving for retirement, that's like the accumulation stage of your life, and that's like climbing to the top of what I call retirement mountain. And it takes a long time to get to the top of the mountain, right? It's step by step, and you're going to slip and fall. But when you're climbing the mountain and you're in the accumulation phase, you brush yourself off and you get up and you keep climbing again. You make mistakes along the way, but you have so much time to recoup it, right? And then when you finally get to the top, right? When you finally get to the top of Retirement Mountain, it's completely different, right? You look around and you're like, this is amazing. We're retired. Now what? Well, now you got to go down the other side of the mountain, right? And there's two sides to the mountain, and it takes the opposite skill set to navigate the risks going down. And so you have all this time going up, because if you trip and fall or run into obstacles, you veer off the path, you come back on. If you veer off the path going down a mountain, that may be it, lights out, right? The things that can happen to you are more treacherous potentially and harder to recover from.
And young people, they do dollar cost averaging on the way up. 100%. But for older people, if they keep trying to do that, it's dollar cost ravaging on the way down. And so you can't retire the same way that you got there.
Yep, you can't.
So Greg, you wrote the book, Your Life, Your Way. Tell me about the book and why you wrote it.
I wrote the book for my clients, really. I mean, that's why I wrote the book. Like, I had been writing what I call one-pagers for years and years about different topics that I thought were important. And then eventually I looked down and I said, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe this is a book. I never thought I'd be an author or write anything. But I was like, I've got enough here. This could help people. And so I created the book because I want people to live a better lifestyle. I want them to be free financially and not be worried and have the same anxiety that I had growing up. And I had a lot of anxiety growing up. I want retirees to live their best retirement, and I don't even know if I can say that, but I want them to live a full retirement, right? And so what I found was my clients are like almost pathological in the fact that they will save money, like at all costs. They look for discounts and is it on sale, and they'll save money, and so they won't spend any money on themselves, right? And so they were underspending in retirement. And so I said, oh, you must want to leave a bunch of money to your kids. And they go, oh, no, I don't want to leave any money to the kids. They'll get the house. I'll go, well, they're going to get way more than the house. They're going to get all this money you're not spending on yourself. And so we came up with Your Life, Your Way, because I feel like people should be traveling and doing while they can. We have a thing we call it make your next 10 your best 10. Right. And when we build a plan, that's where we start. Your next 10 is your best 10. No matter how old you are, we'll make your next 10 your best 10. And we design a financial strategy that's a lifetime strategy, but with a focus on that first 10, so that people can go and do the things that their parents didn't do. I mean, how many times you heard the story? My parents passed away, they never did anything. We thought they were poor. They found a bunch of money in like 15 bank accounts. Right? Or money in the coffee cans and everything else,
And that's why I think people should spend their money
100%.
And then leave life insurance to kids, because you can do that for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, if they want to leave money, that's how they should do it.
The one thing many people don't realize is that the annuity gives you the license to spend your money, because your entire working life you got a paycheck. What do you do with that paycheck? You spent it. Well, then you retire, the paycheck stops. So then you don't dare touch your money, because, oh, what if we have World War III? What if the market goes down? What if bond rates go back? And so they live this just in case retirement. And what the guaranteed paychecks for life do is gives them the license to spend that money, because the next month there'll be another check that's coming in.
And if I was going to add to that, I'd say not only did you have paychecks, but those paychecks were wrapped around benefits. Okay, if you wanted to go on vacation, you kept getting the paycheck. If you got sick and you're out of work for a while, you kept getting the paycheck. You had PTO. If something happened to you, there was life insurance that would pay your family. If you got sick, there's health insurance. So you had the paycheck plus benefits. Right. And if you use the right annuities, they'll give you paychecks plus benefits, and that's the key. That's the key. The benefits, like if you go to hire somebody today, first thing they'll ask me is, well, what about the benefits?
Right.
Right? Because everybody's paying money. Everybody's paying people salaries. They want to know about the benefits. And I think you've got to build your own personal retirement benefit package. And I think annuities have to be part of that story. They do so many great things now.
So Greg, you've got kids. What kind of advice are you giving your kids? You've got younger kids, but you want to get them on the right path. Give us some advice that you're sharing with your kids, and then to other parents on what they can do to help raise their kids to have a better awareness of financial issues.
So for my kids, everything, it's challenging when you're a little bit older and you're more established having kids. Like, because when I grew up, I didn't have anything. and you don't want your kids to have nothing, right? So that is a challenge for me and my wife. And so we started a foundation so that we can give back to others. And so we try to instill in our children that everybody's situation is a little bit different. Not everybody gets to do everything they want to do all the time. So that's number one. Things that I did for my kids to help them early on. That's maybe not the question you're asking, and maybe it doesn't apply to everybody, but if you have the ability to do this, I opened Roth IRAs for my kids because they do work with us. And so they already at very young ages have a few $1,000s sitting in Roth IRAs. They're going to sit and grow tax-free forever. Most people miss out on that one, okay? And most people can do it. Most people can do it. Most people miss out on it. So that's something that you can do. What I try to do is every time the kids earn money, doing their chores, like I never earned money doing the chores. I had to do chores, but they earn money now doing chores. I always correlate like I'll give, if it's $20, $10, $20, whatever the dollar is, I'll say, well, that's half of a Superman. And I'll take them shopping to go buy the thing that they think they can buy with this $10. And we go there and he goes, all right, I want that. I go, you can't buy that. You can buy this with $10. He goes, but I want that. I go, well, come back. I'll bring you back in 3 weeks when you've saved up enough for that. But my kids are very, very young. My youngest son's 5. My oldest son's 10. And so, it's a little bit different from 5 to 10, right?
But I think teaching them delayed gratification is a huge skill because too many people want everything right now. Gary Vee says people lose because they want things fast when life is long.
Yeah.
Any tips for parents on raising their kids?
Start judging parents. I think, it's tricky, right? Because everybody's household is different. We're all raised a certain way. I think you raise your kids, this is what I tell my kids every day. If you're willing to work harder than everybody else and you become a good communicator, okay, I think communication is the number one asset, but more important than algebra, even though I want them to do well in algebra. Communication, and then, make those decisions and then write down your goals. I think those are really important things. And so those are the things I tell my kids all the time. I said, listen, if you want something, you better be able to ask me. You better be able to tell people. You better be able to communicate with others where what you're thinking. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter what you know. If you don't know how to communicate it, who cares?
So, Greg, any final tips on young people? Give them some hope on that. Hey, this can be a great retirement scheme.
I think we're in the greatest opportunity for people in their 20s ever. It's just if you turn on the TV, you won't hear that. Yeah. The reality is, I think there are more opportunities for kids to make money than ever before, and that's the name of the game. You got to make money to save money.
Right.
Nobody ever saved a bunch of money because they made no money. So I think there's more ways to make money right now than there ever has been without a company necessarily paying you. Like you can do it on your own. I don't understand social media the same way. But social media hacks, side hustles, whatever you want to call them. There's so many ways to make a few dollars, but I call them a few dollars. But you might turn $10 into $15. It's a 50% rate of return, right? And $100 into $120. It's 20% rate of return, and then save it. And so I think that the future's super bright for young kids. I don't see it the same way that some people do, where this generation this and this generation that. I think we have to train, we have to teach them, we have to show them, we lead by example.
So Greg, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they find you?
We're easy to find. You go to paradyfinancial.com and you'll see lots of video content, lots of content about our company and who we are.
Very great. This was a great half hour. Thank you so much, Greg, for sharing your wisdom.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Tom.
So thank you all very much for watching today. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? I'll see you on the next episode.